So it would have been a good thing for humans to stay ignorant of what good and evil was,
Yes,
even
yes,
though.
because we never would have got to where we are now. We'd be living on a perfect earth with no death at all, no, perfect perfection, and we actually get to see God in person. Adam got to see God in person, got to walk with him.
But
And Cain
we
talked.
wouldn't know if that was good or not.
Yeah, but we didn't need to know because God said ignorance is bliss.
So you think we it would be better if we were just living in ignorance?
Yes. No, the boat guy in the boat said, "Oh, we'll save you. You're drowning." He said, "No, no, no. God will save me. Go away." No, no. So they went away. Second boat came up. Third boat came up. Same thing. He kept sending them away. Then he drowned and died. When he got to heaven, he said, "God, why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent you three boats."
Yeah, but the reason that joke doesn't well, I mean, I get the humor behind it, but it doesn't make sense in a realistic sense is because God could just lift him out. He wouldn't have to act through people. In fact, if he's sending boats, he's temporarily taking over the free will of those people.
Well, yeah, but it's that's not the point.
But I think that's a good point that you make about the devil using other religions and using false religions and communicating through false religions. So that's the reason I don't believe your religion too, is because I think I could be being deceived. So if there are deceivers, either devil, supernatural,
Because every other
just
religion
just
asks you to.
just human deceivers, how are we supposed to tell the difference between these claims? Like, well, those are just the rules. Follow them, or you're going to hell. How am I supposed to tell your rules are make more sense than these other rules if all of them appear just arbitrary?
Okay. Oh, if you. Okay, let me get my thoughts straight here.
Uh,
We
someone
don't know for
teaches
sure.
if someone teaches me a truth, I no longer have free
We
will because I know that truth.
No, I didn't say that.
So why
You've
couldn't
still got
God
you.
teach them the truth and them still have free will?
Well, this is the thing. They obviously had the truth of God there at some point, and they all rejected it. And every man's heart became evil continually after that point. It was at a point. I don't know why, mate. All these little nuances, all these little details, you're never going to have that fully explained to you why. All I wanted to ask you this, and it's something that I'm really interested in, is that if I wonder if you believe that there's any matter or anything in the universe that's eternal, because when you come down to it, like you can say that some subatomic particle was around or whatever, but you can't, like, everything has to have a beginning, right? So if you get a subatomic,
Well,
like if you say that any energy or any force or any type of anything is eternal, then you have to admit that God's plausible, which I think you do already, don't you? No, you don't.
uh, plausible in the sense that I don't think it's been absolutely disproven, but I don't see any working hypothesis because so you said everything needs a beginning, but there's always the exception of God doesn't need a beginning. So I think, okay, well, what if energy doesn't need a beginning? I don't think that whatever is eternal, it probably hasn't always been in the same form. It probably fluxes between matter and energy and maybe something else, something like that. But it is the same thing. E equals mc squared. So
Yeah.
and
Well, there was.
it changes form, but it is the same thing in a sense. But I think if you can make room for a God doesn't need a beginning, I think at, you could make room for whatever's foundational to the universe doesn't need a beginning.
Yeah, well, don't you think that energy that's been around from everlasting to everlasting might be God? You can't. We don't understand it. I can't understand it. It blows my mind. How can something be around from, like, never be created, that just been around forever? From That's something that if we ever get the chance, that's the first question I want answered. When I die, if I get the chance, that's the very first question I want answered, is how it can be from everlasting to everlasting. But the moment that you say that any matter, or there's something out there that fluxes between this and that, well, basically energy and matter are the same thing. Is that they're just energy, that's been arranged in a certain way. So yeah, energy and matter, if they're the same thing. So if energy is eternal, then God is becomes all of a sudden becomes plausible, and uh, that's what I don't understand about these people that say, like Einstein used to believe in the steady state theory before he spoke to Edward, before he spent that night with Edward Hubble up in the observatory. And after that, he saw that that he believed that the universe is stretching out. Therefore, it must have been closer together at one point. If it's expanding outwards, it had to have been closer together at one point because it couldn't be expanding outwards. And that's sort of where that sort of kicked off the Big Bang really in earnest. The belief in the Big Bang, it really fully sort of got people believing in it because okay, it must have been an explosion or an expansion. Let's just say it was an explosion in where there was no noise. It was a noiseless explosion. So this noiseless explosion expanded out 20 every I looked it up. Every 20 millionth of a second, it expanded to the size of our solar system, and within 3 minutes, it supposedly expanded to the size of 3,000 light years. And then as it went on, it slowed down as it went on, sort of thing. So, they've got things that are faster than the speed of light. This is where I don't have a problem saying that God did it. Okay, we've got the light travel times. I do believe that these distances are real out there. I don't think that they're making this up or it's a conspiracy or anything. I think the science behind it is pretty rock solid, and that these distances are real. But it does say in the Bible 17 times that God stretches out the universe. So you've got these massive distances, and it's all being stretched out exactly the way the Bible says. It also says in the Bible that everything's made of unseen things. And okay, of course, if God had have said in the Bible, oh, everything's made of atoms, people would have been scratching their head going, what? Atoms? What are atoms? So he said unseen things to make it more thing. Well, that confirms the Bible. The Bible says the circle of the earth. When you look up the circle of the earth and you look at the Hebrew, it means that in that context that they say it means sphere. Whereas if you say that I'm sailing down the road in a car, that doesn't mean that you're sailing your car like a boat on the water, right? So you can't take that out of context. If you take that out of context, then you're completely changing the meaning. So when they're talking about circle of the earth in the context, it literally means sphere, that the earth is a sphere. And the Bible basically says the earth is a sphere hanging on nothingness. And it's the only Bible that's scientifically accurate in that sense. I know there's a lot of like this contradiction stuff out there where they've got these ridiculous arguments. I've read them. I've read a lot of them. I'm one of these people, Snake, that actually goes through and reads both sides, and it's the people who explain the Bible and the context of the Bible. I believe them over the people that just rabbit on and don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
With their lies.
I think they could be a little less vague. If you're talking about unseen things, you could talk about the fundamental particles and how they interact.
Yeah,
That
but
might have
people
been
wouldn't have understood
nice.
that.
Well, they understood what a particle is, at least like a particulate of sand or something like that. But I see these coincidences in all of the major faith books. Like the Hindus have a lot of this stuff where they can
No.
accurately describe certain things, but it's a little bit vague, but it fits. But so I don't see that as uniquely being part of the Bible, but I think that those things are
Yeah, but the
pretty
Hindus
pretty
believe that
pretty
the Earth travels on.
intuitive that every you can divide something in half every time. Like we observe that you can always make something smaller, so it kind of follows common sense that everything is made of these tiny little parts that you can't see individually, but together they can create something that is tangible. So
But the Hindus believe that the Earth is travels along on the back of a turtle, sort of thing. So if you take like the Bible as like the whole context of the Bible, where it's all these different things put together, where it says the Earth's a sphere hanging on nothingness, things are made of unseen things, and you go right through the Bible, then and nobody know. Sorry, and you go right through the Bible, then you'll see it's a lot more coherent and scientifically accurate than every other scripture on earth.
I mean, I don't have that many like scientific gripes with the Bible other than like evolutionary things. Um, there's that whole thing about the how the mustard seed is the smallest seed, and that's not
Oh
true.
yeah, no, it
So
is.
I think these things exist
No,
in
no,
all
no, no, no,
this.
no. Wait a
All,
minute. Wait a minute. No, no, no. I've got to correct you there. It's the smallest seed that grows into a tree. It's not the smallest seed. It says it's the smallest seed that grows into a tree, and that is scientifically accurate.
is that what it says though? Does it
Yes,
specify that
that's
it grows in
exact.
trickery?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. In the King James Bible, you don't look at any of those other pathetic versions. You go straight to the King James Bible because isn't it funny? They always say that the
Well,
King James Bible is corrupted, but they always compare all the other versions to the King James Bible. It does say in the King James Bible, it's the smallest seed that grows into a tree. Those exact words. I'm phrasing it verbatim, word for word.
yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, I'm in the camp that thinks that the King James is a little bit manipulated because how
No,
because why would so for hundreds of years they didn't have a Bible that was accurate. That seems a little fishy to me.
no, because all you need with the Bible is the gospel. All you need to be saved is the gospel. That's it. You don't need all the stuff. You need Jesus Christ came to this earth. He was the son of God. He was basically the God man. He was born of a virgin. He died on the cross. He was risen from the dead 3 days later. He died on the cross for your sins, and he was risen from the dead 3 days later, and he was given the keys to death and hell. And at the end of times it says that Jesus Christ will hand the power back to the Father, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's anyway. Sorry, what do you get from that?
Um, yeah, I know that that's like the most important part, or really the only important part, but I still don't understand like why. How is the correct translation of the Bible getting lost over hundreds of years, and then
It
King James makes it, and
it didn't get lost. That they actually found. I've got what's his name? Don Patton talking about this. Now, I've got Don Patton's qualifications, by the way, and I can show you his qualifications. And believe me, this guy is qualified big time. He was the one that excavated the caves of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, what he said about the Dead Sea Scrolls is this. Now, if you walk into a Bible scholar's uh, room today and say or study, sorry, uh, and little library that they've got in their study, you'll see all different types of Bibles, all the corrupted versions, all of the things, and the Bible that they believe is the true version. So what these people had, these Dead Sea people had, they were scholars that basically had copies of all the corrupted versions so they could better argue against them. Now what they found is they found a scroll of Ezekiel. I think it was Ezekiel, and there was almost a complete scroll of almost the complete book of Ezekiel. Now they translated that, and when they translated it, now get this, it was word for word, exactly word for word what the King James Bible is today. When they translated, and that was estimated to have been written in 70 AD. Right, that was at the fall of. He goes through the whole video and explains why he believes it was 70 AD. Shows the evidence for it. So since 70 AD, they've been saying that sort of stuff.
all right. So
That, that, that,
I looked up the parable of the seed, and it says,
oh, but Dan, sorry, they found one little part of the. You better look it up on the KJV, man.
yeah, I did.
They found one little part of the they found one little part of the New Testament, and of course the Jews wouldn't let them excavate the New Testament out of this cave. They didn't give them the permit to excavate it, because this one little section that they found matched the King James Bible of today, word for word, and it was written in 70 AD. So the little fragment that they found, if it was written in 70 AD and it matches the King James Bible of today, then people weren't going without the Bible. Maybe the Bible was corrupted in the meantime. there was some versions out there that were very clear. I hear someone said the Geneva version. I think it was the Geneva version. They said is a pretty good version. It's all you really need to be saved and to learn about God. Whereas the King James Bible just expounded on that. And you were saying about the parable of the seed.
Yeah, so it says, another parable he put forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which is indeed the least of all seeds. So it doesn't say it's the least of all seeds that becomes a tree. It says later on it becomes a tree, but that's to point out the fact that it starts so small and then becomes large. It's not saying that it's in a category of seeds that become trees. So
Yeah, it does. I've got it written up. I've actually got the quote in there. I've got it written up. And a lot of the time when Jesus was speaking in parables, that's a parable, mate. That's a parable. I mean, he's not going to sit there and say, now everybody understood what a mustard seed was. Everybody. So every single person understood what a mustard seed was. So he's just going to say that because it's easier than sitting there and saying, well, there is actually smaller seeds, but and confuse everybody. He's just going to say parables are not meant to be taken 100% literally. So, but there is a verse in the King James Bible. I've got it written down. And what I noticed, Snake, is when you Google these things, Google tries to hide it from you. They try to hide this stuff. So I've got the actual verse and verse number and everything. It's just that, as I told you before, I've been locked out of my bloody account for a couple of days. So as soon as I get back into it, I've got a big write-up on this. I can send it to you via email if Google doesn't censor my email.
yeah, I mean, it is the King James version though, so I looked that up.
Yeah, I know, but there's different. There be all sorts of. That's what Jesus said, but there's one part of it that actually says clearly, and I've got it. I've got the verse number and everything. I just can't find it at the moment, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of little things like that, like breeding the livestock in front of sticks to make them striped. Uh, there's just some weird stuff, but I would rather.
I've got a doc on that too, and they've actually
I'm sure.
done scientific studies. But they've done scientific studies. I've got the citations on this, Snake. They've done scientific studies where they've actually put up speckled things in front of the sheep, and lo and behold, what do they have? Speckled lambs, and they put up straight lines where the sheep can only see straight lines, and what do they get? They get straight lines on a lot of the sheep that are born, and this is genetically proven. This is proven in citations. So once again, the King James Bible is confirmed. You know.
Yeah, I would like to see those studies if you got
Oh,
them.
mate, I'll send it to you. It's just that you know what I notice, mate, is every time I give you a link in the chat, I think a lot of them are being hidden by Google. I don't think you're seeing a lot of them, and I come back at you and I say, "You rotten bastard! You never read any of that. You just this and that, and you probably never even saw it. It's probably just been hidden from you by Google.
I've
I don't think you have.
I maybe that's true. I mean, that happens a lot.
Some of them, not all of them.
I've definitely gotten your Google Docs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that Google Doc about the ring straight and speckled and that, there's actual studies where they've done it. Like today, they've done that. They've done that and caused sheep to have speckled and striped. So that's I was actually blown away by that, because when you said that to me once a long time ago, I thought, okay, he's got me there. I'm going to have to admit that that's a bit of a. And then Matt came back to me and he said, hey, look at this. He said, look at this and look at this. I went, oh, what? Yeah. So anyway, I'll get that to you when I get back into me docs in a couple of days.
Yeah, don't forget that, because that would be
No, I won't.
interesting.
I won't, mate. That's something I really want you to see, because I love it. I love that doc.
Oh, and the other thing was the cure for leprosy in the Bible is dipping a bird in blood and spraying it on your walls.
Yeah, we're talking about supernatural healings, mate. Like one time, my dog had a bad stomach injury, and she was all night long like she got hit in the stomach real hard. I accidentally did it. It was an accident. I didn't mean it. You know what I mean? It was an accident. I did it to her, and she all night long she was going which means that she had something ruptured inside of her. And I mean, literally for 16 hours, she was doing this. And she's only a young dog, too. I took her up the backyard. I got on my hands and knees. I put my hands on her and I started crying and begging God because I love my dog, man. I love my dogs like like people love their, like your mum and dad love you, mate. They're my little babies, except I have to watch my babies die when they're 10 and 14 and stuff like that. But anyway, so I put my hands on her and I was crying to God and I'm begging God and I'm please, please, with tears streaming down my face because I didn't want to see my little baby die so young. And I said, please, Heavenly Father, heal her in Jesus' name by the power of the Holy Ghost. And the moment, and I mean literally the split second my hands left her, she stopped doing it and went, and started breathing normally and has breathed normally ever since. I've done the same thing to my knee. My knee is like new again. It was worn cartilage. I can go for walks. You've seen, I sent you a video of me walking over the hill. I was in pain constantly. So there's so many different things, Snake. I wish you could experience something like that, something supernatural. I really do.
Yeah, I would love to experience something like that, but I hear stories like that from every faith.
Yeah, I know.
I do though, and
Yeah, but they're
but
lying.
what about all the times I'm not? I mean,
No, they're
they might
lying.
be
They're
lying,
lying.
but I don't.
They are, not you.
There's no difference between my perspective, what you're saying, and what they're saying. So, as far as I know,
There is.
you could be lying. They could be. You
Yeah, I
could
know. I
all be
could be.
lying.
Yeah, I could
So
be. That's right. I
so,
understand.
but of course, I think if you put it to the
I'm
test,
not.
if I brought you like a child dying of cancer, and you did it, and then I brought you 10 of them, and you did it all to all of them, I think that would be something. But I
Yeah.
suspect that the experiment would fail.
Mm. Well, there was a woman. This is from Northwest Creation Network. The what is it called? Uh, there's something I can't remember their church. Anyway, it's Northwest Creation Network, and they said that they had a woman who had a cancer the size of a small orange in her kidney, and she went and had all the biopsies, the scans, everything. It was all confirmed. She was ready to go for the operation in a week's time. It's also got a lot to do with how many people pray for you and how bad something is, and so well, she got hundreds of people praying her for her nonstop for a whole week. When she went for the operation, now this is in a hospital, man, with atheist doctors. These are not doctors that are going to make up some lie and falsify this stuff. A lot of doctors are atheists. Even doctors that work in like Baptist hospitals are atheists. So they're not going to lie about this stuff. That she went in to have the operation, and this is documented. You'd have to contact Northwest Creation Network and ask them for a reference. Contact them somehow and ask them for a reference. But she went in for this operation, and the cancer was gone. It was completely gone. When they cut her open, because they just cut her open, of course, it's only a week. Cancers that size don't go away in a week by themselves. They cut her open, and it was complete. There was no cancer in her body at all. It was completely gone. So, when you see stuff like that, and I like the supernatural experiences that I've told you about before, like I was standing at the fridge. Have you heard that one where I said I was standing at the fridge that day, and the box freezer in the hallway? And I
Mm-mm.
was standing at the box freezer in the hallway, and I had all my dogs around me. And of course, all my dogs are so intent on what's in the box freezer because they're little bludgers, and they're trying to scab food all the time. So they're all like sitting there wagging their tails, and they're big. You've seen my dogs, like big tough bulldogs, and if you watch that video, you would have seen them. And they're all sitting there wagging their tails, and I just looked to the side. I wasn't giving them any cues. I just looked to the side. All the windows were open. It was bright and sunny in the lounge room, and it wasn't like night and creepy or anything like that. It was beautiful and sunny, and I got huge windows. I got a 20-foot high ceiling, literally 20-foot high at the highest point of my ceiling in the lounge room, and I I saw this thing move like away from the door, and it was so crystal clear that I could just barely see it. And I just turned away because I just automatically assumed, okay, I've got these huge windows, the clouds going past outside. It's nothing else. I literally my eyes didn't go wide. I didn't get a shock. It was so faint that it wasn't like, some outline of some demon with great big claws or something, you know what I mean? So it was just so faint you could barely see it. So I just turned around and I kept digging around in the fridge. And then about 10 or 15 seconds later, because you know how when you're looking down in your fridge and all your dogs are around your legs, you peripheral vision, you can see all of your dog's heads. I could see all of my dog's heads. All of my dog's heads turned at exactly the same time. They looked down the hallway. I went, huh? And I looked up from the fridge and I looked down the hallway and I couldn't see anything by this stage. Oh, actually, I could see it. And by this stage, it moved out into the middle of the lounge room and then went up. I could see it rise up. All my dogs took off at once down the hallway and attacked this thing. They were leaping off the ground, the whole 5 of them. And you know that savage Rottweiler sound you hear in movies? Where that's what they were doing with their teeth showing. And they were leaping as high as they could, trying to grab onto something that wasn't there and pull it back down again. They were literally snapping and trying to grab hold of something. So, and that freaked me out. That really freaked me out. That was something that I thought, okay, I didn't give the dogs any cues, nothing. And the way that they went at this thing, that just went, okay, there was something in my lounge room. I don't know what it was. Another time, I had my dad's cousin, Ross, I won't say his second name, he attacked me with an iron bar. Now, this is in front of 2 police officers, right? The off-duty police officers having a drink with a guy called, I won't say his second name, Ian. He lives I used to live at 13 North Shore Drive, Port Macquarie, right? New South Wales, Australia, okay? And just behind me was a guy that used to work on the ferry. Now, Ross Pulford attacked me one night when my father was dying. It wasn't, my father died not long after this, but he attacked me one night while my father was dying, and I'd been looking after him, carrying to and from the toilet, wiping his bum, so on, so on. I'd been through hell looking after him. And I was just broken down, and I was a bit drunk this night, and I hadn't spoken to anybody in weeks because I was looking after my dad, and I just wanted someone to talk to for 20 minutes. So I walked next door while they were having a drink, about 8 of these guys, and I said, oh, look, I just want to have a talk. And Ross hated my guts, right? My dad's cousin. He was an ex-bikie, an ex-rebel bikie. Piece of garbage he is. Anyway, he ran towards me. He actually left the rebels. They beat him up for that and everything. But anyway, he ran towards me with an iron bar, and he went to hit me with the iron bar. My hand just went up automatically. I knocked it out of his hand. I could hear the iron bar going through the air. I didn't know how. And then I grabbed him and I lifted him off the ground. At this stage, I was drinking about 10 to 20 bottles of vodka a fortnight, right? Spirit bottles. I was sick. I was overweight. I was bloated. I was as weak as piss. I couldn't have even bench press 25 pounds, right? I was so weak. I lifted this guy off the ground. His feet were dangling 3 feet in the air. I couldn't feel any weight at all. It felt like I was holding helium balloons. Ian Workman, I shouldn't have said his name. Doesn't matter. Anyway, if they take it down, they take it down. But he grabbed my arm. This guy weighed 160 kilos, which is getting up towards 300, 400 pounds, right? And he was overweight. The doctor told him if he didn't lose weight, he was going to be dead within 2 years. And he was strong. Now, wait a minute. I know he was a strong man as well, very strong. He was trying to pull down my arms. I couldn't even feel the sensation of touch on my skin. Something was holding Ross off the ground that day, and it wasn't me. I know that I could be lying about that, but that's in front of witnesses. And I've got the names of the people. I've got their addresses where they live. And anybody could go and talk to them. They could either lie and tell the truth, or they could tell exactly what I just told you happened. So, when you experience things like that, Snake, you've got to understand that's why no matter what evidence an atheist comes up with, whatever they show me, I know it's bull.
So what do you attribute this to? Like, I know you think it's God, but why is he giving you this power?
Because I don't know. But I'm not saying it was God. I'm not saying it was God. It might have been a demon. It says in the Bible, be careful what you attribute to God. It says, don't attribute the works of the devil to God, and don't attribute the works of God to the devil. So I try to be careful about saying whether it was God that helped me or whether it was a demon that helped me. Most people just jump to the conclusion it was God that helped me. Well, I'm very careful. I don't know what it was, but I know it was something. And I know that it was impossible for me to lift someone and not even feel weight. I've got 20 kilo dog food bags out there. 20 kilos is about 42 pound or 45 pound. Now, I can't even hold 45 pound up in the air. Now, a 90 kilo guy, let me give you an idea, is about 180, 190 pound. Okay. So I held 190 pound off the ground and dangling in midair with his feet dangling 3 feet off the ground. And he looked down and he saw his feet kicking in midair, flipping in midair, and his eyes went wider than anybody I've ever seen. And at the same time, Ian Workman was begging me to put him down and hanging off my arm. I couldn't even feel the sensation of touch on my arm, and begging me to put him down because Ross was choking. Something was holding him up by his throat, and it wasn't me. But my arms were up there as if I was holding him up. So I don't know what that was, man. And when you experience stuff like that, Snake, that's why I can't. There's nothing that anybody could say that could ever change my mind. That's in front of witnesses. I also did the same thing. I lifted a guy that weighed about 100 kilos off the ground, his feet just straight out in front of me. I lifted his feet about 4 inches, 5 inches off the ground and walked about 15 feet with him
Yeah,
like
I
that
mean,
and placed him against the wall
I've
in front of
been
witnesses.
I've been astonished by my strength at times too, and particularly times of where there was adrenaline pumping. And
No, that's the thing. That's what people always say to me. There is no adrenaline. When I did these things, I was as calm inside. I was calm and peaceful and quiet inside. There was no anger. There was no hatred. There was no, ah! It was just calm. There was no adrenaline. I just gently put him
yeah,
back down
I've
and I walked
experienced
off
yeah
quietly.
yeah
There was no adrenaline.
I've
I know what
experienced
adrenaline is
things.
because I've injected adrenaline. I've injected it.
Yeah,
And I've also felt it when I've done a lot of crazy things in my life, mate. I've felt adrenaline. It wasn't adrenaline.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've experienced those things where all of those times that were like surprising and intense, I was in a state of calm, even though I was physically exerting myself. But that at no point was it supernatural, and it's been explained physiologically. I mean, your stories might be a little more extreme than something that I might be talking about, but it, I, the main problem is I think if this was happening, it could be tested, right?
I bent police bars. I bent bars in on a police cell. That even if you had a block a 9 pound block splitter, and you were hitting those bars with full force for 2 hours, you wouldn't be able to bend them. And I bent them, bowed them inwards with my bare fists, and didn't even get a mark on me. And the police were so terrified of me. Now get this. Now this is on record at a police station, Concord Police Station in New South Wales. This is on record, 1989. Go and check it out. Okay. Now these police, they came down. They came. My mother came to see me, and they made her sign. She said, "I want to go in the cell." They said, "We're not putting you in the cell." She said, "I'm going in the cell no matter what. I want to go in." They made her sign a waiver that if anything happened to her, that she wouldn't be able to sue the government or the police force. So she signed this thing, and they had 5 huge coppers, bull neck coppers, open. I was a skinny little 19-year-old kid. Open the door, quickly shove her in, shut the door, and quickly lock it. Now, she said, the moment I get in there, he'll be as gentle with me. He'll be as gentle with me as a kitten. And that's exactly what I was with my mother. Gentle as a kitten. And I didn't. And then she went out, and they said, when he wakes up in the morning, will he be all right? She said, when he wakes up in the morning, he'll be really sorry for what he's done, and he'll be respectful and polite and stuff like that. And I was exactly what she said.
So do you think you could reproduce these effects?
No, it's something that happens. I can't. It's like if someone comes after me to kill me, I can't be guaranteed that this is going to happen, because there's been times when I've had my face smacked in by guys half my size, like just literally one guy literally half my size, half my weight once, just slapped me around like a little bitch, mate. You know what I mean? Like it and I was just shocked. You know, so no, I can't.
So you just attribute this to supernatural just because you can't
Yes,
explain it?
yes, it is supernatural. There's no other explanation for it. When you can't feel anything, I had I'm not going to go on with all the other ones. It's no point. But when you can't feel any, you don't even look. When you don't even get a mark, on your hand after doing something like that. Now, come on, mate. You know, not a bruise, not a scratch, not a nothing, not a sore bone, that is. Now, just tell me, how do you do something like that and wake up the next day and not have your hands broken or thing? There was not a bit of damage on my body. I was kicked that night in front of James. Let's say second name, James, a friend of mine. God, I'm hopeless with that. He said that I walked out of that party that night. someone had a go at me, and I got the shits. And I grabbed a heavy wooden door. I ripped it off the hinges. I threw it across 200 people in a backyard at a party. It went right over into the next door neighbour's house, about 50, 60 feet, 80 feet away. And then I walked out the front. And when I walked out the front, I had to go at these guys, and 8 guys were kicking me in the stomach. Every time I got up, they'd run over and kick me. And James said they were kicking me as hard as they could in the ribs and the stomach, and I'd fall back down and I'd get up again. He walked up and stopped them from doing it because he knew the guys. He said, look, he's had enough now, stop, because he thought I was going to die. And then I got up and I was running around someone's front yard. I was so blind, drunk, carrying on like a moron, like going, woohoo, you know what I mean? Like having fun, like an idiot. And a copper by the name of Matthew Feehan. I'm sure I'm allowed to say a police officer's name. Matthew Feehan was the copper's name, and he worked at Concord in 1989. Right? He ran at me, I spun around, and I clocked him right in the face and knocked him out cold. And I took off down the road, and they said they've never seen someone run that fast in all their life. Not even these world champion 100-meter sprinters. They said they'd never seen anything like it. And they said I got about 100 meters down the road, which is about 300 and something feet. I fell flat on my face, skidded across the road, and then got up and started trying to crawl away. I was so drunk. And they dragged me back to twice I did that. And then they took me back and then they put me in the bull wagon. Matt was standing there talking to some, because he was friends with my friends, right? And me as well. And he was standing there talking about it. I'm banging on the bull wagon saying, let me out, I'm going to throw up, I'm going to spew. And they said they opened the door and they'd never seen anybody burst out like that before. I burst out like a greyhound. I ran as fast as a greyhound for about 100 meters, fell flat on my face. They dragged me back, kicked me back into the bull wagon. I never got a mark on me. I never got a mark, not a single bruise, not a single mark, anything. The only time I got a mark was one tiny little boot mark on my back. But I had 3 police officers kicking me in the back as hard as they could to boot me in to get me into the back of the bull wagon. I ended up getting 1,400. And then that's when they took me back to they took me back to the station, and that's when I beat the bars in. And that's at Concord Police Station in 1989, and my name is Jason Ezard. If anybody's got the power to check that out, go check it out.
So if this was a supernatural event, did you just take, like if they could heal everything else, except for the one boot mark?
Like well, how did I get kicked in the stomach?
That's what's absurd to me.
But how did I get kicked in the stomach and the rib by 8 guys all taking turns every time I got up? Because you know why they were kicking me? Not because they were angry at me, because they were terrified to let me get up. They were scared to let me get up. They were terrified to let me get up because they were scared if I got up, what I'd do. So they're running in, these huge guys kicking me as hard as they could in the guts and the ribs. And that's James's account of it. And he had to stop them because he thought I was going to die, and I didn't even have a mark. So I would say that the police are sanctioned by God. Right? So whatever demon or whatever evil force or whatever was helping me, maybe it was evil, maybe I think pretty sure it would have been evil. Whatever force was helping me at that time, right, obviously couldn't resist the power of God, because it says in the Bible, police are appointed by God to protect us. They're supposed to be. Okay. So, you know what I mean? So maybe that cut through that strength. I don't know, but all I know is how do you bend bars in on a police cell? That this lattice work stuff, it's like half an inch thick bars, and it's in this specially extra strong lattice work. You can't bend it if you hit it with a block splitter. Yet I could bend it in, bow it right in when I was banging on it with my fist and not even get a single mark on it on my fist.
Yeah, so assuming that you're relaying this accurately,
I am.
I don't think that it's enough information, because if we don't know how something happens, then I think that's just where we should stop. Say, I don't know how that happened.
I spoke to Matt Feehan after that weeks after that happened, and he explained to me in great detail. That's how I know, because I couldn't remember any of it. He explained it to me in great detail. And you think all those cops are going to lie and make that up? No, they're not. They weren't. And Matt wouldn't do that. You know what Matt was trying to do? And I can say this now, it's been so long. He was trying to sneak me past the sergeant. Even after I did all that, he was going to take me in and lock me up and let me go the next morning, right? When I'd sobered up. But on the way past the sergeant asked what was going on, and I broke free from them and flew across the tables. And by the time 5 coppers had jumped on me, I just got to the sergeant, just grazed his nose with my fist. And he said, F him. He said, F him. He said, chuck him in the cell and throw the book at him. Stuff him. Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't think this was like a demon possession? You think this was God, even though you were
No, I think it was demon. I think it was evil. I think
okay?
there's just no word to describe what. I mean, I don't believe God would allow that something like that to happen. No way. So that one was evil. That was some
Yeah,
sort of possession.
it's just interesting that demons would not choose to, I don't know, inhabit like Ted Bundy so he could break out of jail in the middle of the courtroom and just shrug off all the cops. And
Well, it always seems that sort of thing when I get out of control like that happens when I'm blind drunk, where I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. Like I get into this state where
hmm,
if I, and a lot of people get this and they don't admit it, but if you get really blind drunk, sometimes people get up, try to walk through walls and open a door that's not there, or piss on a chair and think it's the toilet. You know what I mean? They're sleepwalking. That's called sleepwalking while you're, you know what I mean? Like I used to do a lot of sleepwalking, just like Step Brothers. I used to get blind drunk and take some pills and whatever. But I wasn't violent. But like, unless someone attacked me or started me off, I was fine. And I used to put pillows in the oven, and I used to get my missus' handbag and put it in the hallway and cover it over with blankets, and to make sure it was comfortable and stuff. You know what I mean? Her handbag, weird stuff. And I called my grandma, I called my aunt in Hawaii once and told them kidnappers are after me. I'm running from them, they're trying to kill me. I was sleepwalking, and I was completely lucid. I've driven my car, and been completely sleepwalking, asleep. So that's why I don't get drunk anymore. I don't like to get drunk, and I don't like to blind. Well, drunk's fine, but blind, rotten drunk, no good. So I believe when you get into that state, you allow yourself and allow yourself to be open to possession a lot more easily. So I don't think Ted Bundy was blind drunk off his face in the court that day, where he could be open to demonic possession or some sort of possession.
so if a sober person or like an atheist or someone of other religious belief had these experiences, that wouldn't really change your outlook at all.
No, because it's demonic, mate. It could be demonic. It could be anything. It's most probably demonic. So if these people are having these experiences, if they're in other religions, then
But
all the
but
religions
probably
are
not the
Satanist,
healing, right?
counterfeit, counterfeit. Well, the healing part is that I'm like you, mate. I'm exactly like you. I don't believe it unless I see it. I only believe myself,
Mm-hmm.
right? I do believe that thing about the northwest creation
Yeah.
because that's on evidence, and and
So
and, and
so
also,
yeah.
sorry.
So if a Muslim was telling you they prayed over their dog and healed their dog, what would you think about that?
Well, I think God took pity on them and healed their dog. The one true God, not Allah. Allah couldn't care less about. Allah's a demon. Allah couldn't care less about people. So yeah,
So
I
it doesn't
believe
really
that.
matter like which God you pray to, or but you said earlier you think
No,
that
no, I don't say it
it's
doesn't
tied to him.
matter. No, no, it does. There's some people in this world that just for whatever reason God will decide to help them. 99% of the time, or 10,000, 10,000, 9,999 times out of 10,000, he's probably not going to help most people. It's just that sometimes, for whatever reason, he takes pity on that person and he decides to help them. I don't know why. I don't know why he does things sometimes and not others. I don't know why. But all I trust in is myself and what I've seen. Not myself. I trust in God, but you know what I mean. I only trust in what I've seen, I should say, not in myself. I only trust in what I've seen. So when I hear these other accounts, I'm just as skeptical as you. So I fully understand where you're coming from.
Okay, yeah, because from my perspective, I need to be able to test it out and things like that,
Yes.
and the other part is just like even an introduction to being able to test it out is being able to understand some of sort of a model. So if you're just saying like, oh, these random people, he helps heal their dog or heal their cataracts or their knees, but then he does nothing when children are being kidnapped and murdered and dying of cancer and starving to
No,
death. That
I,
doesn't
I
fit.
hate this world.
There's no like, I can't understand how that could make sense from an intelligent agent.
It
So
makes
you
it's
can
like
you can
this.
say, well, he could have the power to do
Jesus Christ.
this, but if I don't have a framework of like a model of how a being is going to choose who he heals, like I can't even begin to understand it. So, and that's in
Okay.
addition to like, well, I would also want to be able to test, like if you say you can heal people, bring you to people or bring
No,
people to
no, no,
you
no.
and
I
heal
didn't say
them.
I could heal. I didn't. I wouldn't. No, no. Look. Okay. Let's start with this first. Jesus Christ went through. He was hunted, tortured, mocked, brutally murdered. What Jesus Christ went through on the cross. No one can say that anything any of those children went through that were brutally murdered was worse than him. Now, if you're not of the age yet where you understand that you're a hellbound sinner, if you know how when you're a child you don't fully understand these concepts. If you don't understand the concept of being a hellbound sinner that needs a savior, that when you die you go to heaven by default. But the moment you get to the age where wherever that age may be for each individual different person, I bet it's different for everyone. The moment they realize that they're a hellbound sinner on the way to hell, then they need a savior and they reject Christ, then they're screwed. But before that, I believe that you go to heaven. And
So,
Jesus, so whatever hell you go through, it says when you get to heaven, all your tears and pain will be washed away forever and ever. Now, just think about this. My friend in here died for an hour. He was dead for an hour from a massive heroin overdose. He was sitting in a bath. He was having, at the time when he died, he was using 10 grams of heroin a day. Okay. So
mhm.
he had a massive shot. Oh no, I will standing. Just wait. He had a massive shot of heroin. He slipped under the water. Okay. They both fell asleep. He slipped under the water. The missus didn't. When she woke up, so I don't know how long he was dead. When she woke up, he was blue. She dragged him out of the bath. He wasn't breathing already. So they don't know how long he was dead already, but he was dead by that stage. No heartbeat, no brain activity. She called an ambulance. Took him about 20 minutes to get there. They hooked him up before they shocked him. They hooked him up or something, or whatever they did, hooking him up with these things to see, once they shock him, to see if his heart's going, sort of thing. Now they shocked him and they worked on him for about 20 minutes. He came to and started thrashing around, and he ripped off all the things that were on him, showing he had no heartbeat and whatever, and then they had to reattach them afterwards. So he thought that they reattached them after he woke up, but they didn't. He woke up flailing his arms around. So while he was dead, he went to a pitch black, dark place. He said that place was so dark. He said, you go into a room where you can't see your hand 1 inch in front of your face. He said that was darker than that. It was like liquid darkness. And he said that just he was it felt like an eternity that he was there. And he was there. He was literally dead, confirmed dead, and he was sent back for a second chance. So sorry, mate. I know I'm cutting you off a lot, and Standing just pointed that out. So I should let you talk, mate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so would you attribute that to a miracle or the medical
Yes.
science?
Yes. No.
So
That's that's. Well, there
he
was
would have
no.
come back if he didn't go to the hospital.
But he was dead. We worked out he was dead for at least an hour. I worked it out from what he told me. He was dead for. He doesn't remember because he doesn't know how long it was, because he was anyway.
Yeah,
When
so
he
you
was
don't.
anyway, he was dead for at least an hour, maybe more. See, he might have been asleep under the water, and they might have gone out and been asleep for hours. He might have been dead for hours for all we know. We don't know. But all she knows is when she pulled him out, by the time she pulled him out to the time he was brought back to life, he had no heartbeat, no brain activity, nothing. Dead for an hour. Your blood congeals in your veins at that point. Starts to congeal in your veins. So, how does he come back from that? To be with no brain damage whatsoever, no ill effects whatsoever, nothing.
Well, it just depends on your metabolism, but
Metabolism, he's not no metabolism.
yeah.
He's dead. The blood's not pumping. The heart
Well,
stopped for.
they put freezing jackets on people who are having heart problems to lower their body
No, but he was
temperature,
in
and
a
then
warm bath.
lowers your metabolism, and then that's
But he was in a
proven
warm
to
bath.
have less brain damage.
Yes, but he was in a warm bath. He was sitting. He had a shot in a warm
I know, but
bath.
I'm just pointing out
Yeah,
ways that this
I know.
happens. There's a guy
Yeah.
who was underwater for a freezing lake for an hour, and he was brought back. But this is medically explained. But I think it's naive to say that if you can't medically explain something right now, that it was supernatural is essentially a claim that, well, we know everything about the medical field, is because you would have to say, well, we've ruled out all the possibilities, but we don't know everything. There are known unknowns, stuff we know that we don't know about biology. Then there are things we don't even know that we don't know, the unknown unknowns. And there could be something in biology that we just don't understand yet. And so to attribute these things to supernatural is just, it's hasty, especially since, well, if you require a strict explanation for a natural explanation, but you don't require one for a supernatural explanation, you're just saying, well, it was some kind of vague magic something without explaining how that works. It seems like a double standard to me.
Well,
Does that make
when he was
sense?
in, I understand what you're saying, yeah, but when he was in this place, he was, his whole physical body was there. He was there in this place. He could feel. He had senses all about him.
Well,
He
I
wasn't.
mean, I do that every night when I dream. I
No, you
feel like my
don't.
physical
No, you
body is
don't.
somewhere.
No, you don't. When you dream, you don't feel pain. When you get, I've been shot with machine guns in my dream. I've hit the ground after falling off buildings, full force, in my dreams. I've all sorts of things. You don't feel pain. He could feel pain.
I yeah,
Cold, heat.
I dream and have tooth pains a lot. So if
Yeah, but you don't really feel it. I've had that
oh,
all
I
the
do
sort of
though.
weird dreams.
I do.
Okay. Well, maybe you've got a tooth. If you've got a, if sometimes when you're just sitting there, sometimes your teeth will start to ache. That's happened to me as I was growing,
Well, it's because
right?
I
So
grind
maybe
my
while
teeth. I grind my teeth in
you're
my sleep. So
well, you got a pain in your tooth while you're asleep, and that's why you thought you felt the pain in the dream. That's
yeah,
what I would put it
and
down to.
oxygen deprivation is painful. So I think,
Yeah.
I mean, it's well explained why people hallucinate when they have low oxygen in their brains.
The hypoxia is what you're talking about. He wasn't hallucinating. It wasn't low oxygen, mate. There was no oxygen for an hour, and it could have been longer. So
But if your brain shuts off, if you're already unconscious by the time your heart stops, your brain is burning through less oxygen. So that we know that if the
six
brain is
minutes,
consuming less oxygen, then it
six
can
minutes until brain death.
then it can survive past 6 minutes. Like that, it's documented.
6 minutes until brain death, and I believe those people under the ice had supernatural help to
Uh,
save them. There's no way. Ask any doctor. 6 minutes till brain death.
oh,
After that,
I
then
have
you're
asked
not.
I have asked doctors. I've had medical training, so this is how I know
Mm.
that's under normal oxygen consumption is the 6 minutes. But
What do you mean
but
normal oxygen consumption?
your body consumes oxygen at a normalized rate, or you can elevate that consumption by exercise, or you can lower that consumption, and
Yeah,
that's metabolism. One of the
but
ways is through cold. You can actually just lower metabolism just by lowering the temperature of your
yeah,
body.
it
Um,
wasn't lowered, mate.
and
It
it
was
goes down when you're asleep too.
it was stopped completely. There was no blood pumping. If there's no blood pumping, there's no oxygen getting to the brain. 6 minutes. Once your heart stops and there's no blood pumping to replenish the blood in your brain, the oxygen in the blood that's in your brain already, if you really did do medical, studies, you'd understand this, is used up. It's gone. Unless the more blood pumps in there to pump more oxygen, your brain is dead.
I mean, we don't know the precise
Yes, we
details of
do.
this case. You said he was shocked. That would actually mean his heart was still pumping.
He was dead. He was dead for, I can work out, for at least an absolute bare minimum about 40 minutes to an hour before they got there with no heartbeat at all. None.
Um, it's possible. Like, who was measuring his pulse? Was it an untrained professional?
No,
You can have a weak pulse.
no,
Um,
he had machines on him. You know, when an ambulance gets there, before they shock you, they'll hook you up with things to measure your heart rate, like machines that they go dit, dit,
mhm.
dit, that measure your heart rate. Like they've got these portable ones with them, and they hooked him up. Like he was hooked up to machines to show he had no heartbeat. He had no heartbeat. He was blue. He wasn't breathing when Jody pulled him out of the bath. His girlfriend.
Mhm. I mean, well, you say he was shocked. I don't know if that's a hard detail
Yeah, but
or
that's
if you're
later
just if
on.
you're just saying that.
That's in the
Um,
last 15 minutes. That's on record, by the way. That's
okay,
I could
but
get the exact place and time and everything
yeah, I
from
mean
him.
the shock is only given to if your heart is beating. They don't do it for
No,
flatline. No,
no. Well,
no,
they
that's yeah,
did. They
that's a
well,
medical
no,
effect.
no. They did. They did because she was there begging them and crying and begging them, and they did. They shocked him even though he did not already have a heartbeat. He had no heartbeat. They shocked him. So this was back in the 90s, mate. So I don't know what your medical protocols are now or what they are in America, but I'm telling you, these ambos shocked him. He had no heartbeat when they got there, and she was so frantic and so going off her head and upset and begging them that they decided, oh well, what the heck, what's it going to do? What can it hurt? The guy's dead anyway. He's a junkie. He's had massive dose of heroin. Let's give it a go, sort of stuff. No, I can get you the details. You probably even go back and speak to the Ambo guy. He said was a real fit young guy, so he'd probably still be alive around. So we could probably even track down the Ambo that hooked him up.
Yeah, so I'm certified EMT, so I'm certified to be on an ambulance, and they don't shock you if your heart is stopped. The
Well,
the machine
they may
the
not,
machine
but
does it
they did.
automatically. Actually,
No, no, mate.
I've worked
That's
with these
no.
machines. I've
I
used
know
them.
you may have. Okay, so you've worked with the machines in say 92, right? So all the machines have been identically the same since 92 up to today. Is that right? And you've got the same procedures we've got the same procedures in Australia as you've got in America. Is that right? So and that every single doctor follows exactly this the exact procedure every single time. Well, I've watched lots of medical emergencies, real ones, on videos, and they don't. Sometimes
So,
they do things that
so
they're
you're
not
saying
meant to
that?
do.
Are you saying the shock did something, or are you
No,
saying
no. All I'm saying
they
is they
just
were
tried it?
trying. They tried it, and he came back to life. And of course they're going to think it was the shock that did it, but no, no way it was the shock that did it. He was dead for too long before they reached him.
Okay. So do you think there's a reason why this happens to people who've only been had their heart stopped for a couple of hours, and that it never happens to people who've been dead for days or months?
Sorry.
So how come the supernatural resurrections only occur to people who have been dead within a period of time that's been shown that there is a way to medically bring them back?
Well, there was
But it
one
never
guy that was.
it never happens to people who have rotting bodies. Rotting bodies are never restored
Of
supernaturally.
course. They say Lazarus was, and let's go back to this. Let's go back to this. There's this one guy. This is on record in California. In California, this guy's in California, still alive today, and this is on record. He was dead all up for 6 hours and 45 minutes. 1 hour and 45 minutes upstairs, 6 hours in the morgue freezer downstairs. Now, if you see the reason why he died, you'll believe that he was dead. He was hit by electricity. He had part of his heart blown clean off. And his spinal, he fell 40 feet after that. His spinal cord was completely severed. His back was crushed and broken into little pieces. Two of his fingers that hit the electricity were blown off into dust. There was two blackened charcoal bones there. Now, just a long story short, so I don't go through all of this because I can give you the link to this if you ever bother to watch it and check it out. When they unwrapped his fingers one day, both his fingers were back. Not only were they back, but then they were freaked out that they were back. Then they fingerprint tested him, and they said, because he obviously had his fingerprints on record, they said, you've got the same fingerprints as you had before. How does that happen? And he said, original equipment given to me by my father in heaven. So, and his back was completely healed without any trace. His lungs were all blown apart with holes in them. One lung was completely collapsed and blown apart. He was on an iron lung, and it was breathing for him at the time. I know they don't use iron lungs anymore, and they got their dangers and all that sort of stuff. I understand all that. But anyway,
So there's
he
no
was
way these were misdiagnosed as more damage than.
misdiagnosed. He was in intensive care for 3 months, and he was being kept alive by all these machines for 3 months, and then he died, and they left him because of what he'd been through. They left him lying there for an hour and 45 minutes to make sure he was dead before they sent him down to the morgue freezer. So they made sure he was dead. His part of his heart blown off, all of these problems, huge femur bones sticking out. He actually had parts of his ribs sticking through his heart and lungs as well. His ribs are all broken and crushed and going through his heart and lungs. Now,
And the
they
healing
managed to
only
keep him.
happened
They
after
managed to, wait a minute.
months
Yes, now it doesn't matter when it happened.
when no one was
All that happened,
looking.
all that happened. Now, this is in an American hospital with atheist doctors. These doctors said he was certifiably insane.
They were all
because
atheists.
he kept saying these atheist doctors would come to him and they
Do
would
you
say, and
do you think
they would
all
try to.
doctors are atheists?
I didn't say that. I
You
didn't
just
say
keep
that.
you
But
just
the
keep
ones
saying atheist
I
doctors, but
didn't say that.
I
I
don't know
didn't
how you
say that.
know.
That's I'm saying what he said.
Okay.
He said that some of the atheist nurses while he was in there for 3 months used to come in. Now get this, they used to come in and steal his gospel cassette tapes. They'd steal them off him, and because they hated God that much, they hated religion that much, they'd steal them off him. Now these people that were doing that to him all admitted that what he said is the truth. He was dead for 1 hour, and regardless of how he died is not the point. He was dead with witnesses, some religious, some atheist. Okay, and he was dead for 1 hour and 45 minutes upstairs. They left him there to make sure he was dead. Then they transported him, put him in a body bag, put him inside the fridge, locked the fridge, and he was dead for 5 hours in the fridge. One of the nurses who had just been converted to Christianity came down to see her friend because she knew this guy. He was and opened the fridge, and she pulled the table out, and she opened up the bag, and all of a sudden she was watching him for a while, and all of a sudden he started breathing. They got him back upstairs, and then slowly over a period of however long, I don't know, everything healed. He said, I thought you told me I was going to walk out of here. He said, I have to walk out of here today. God said, I told you you'd be healed and you'd walk out of here. You're the one that said you're going to walk out of here today. That's what he said to him.
So what's
God
the
said
name
to
of
him.
this guy?
Ron Ogren. I've literally got this huge write up on him, and I checked it out. There's not one single one. He said he went to this particular hospital in California. He's been going around. He's done talks with thousands and thousands of people. There's not been one doctor that came out to disagree with what he said, because he said that one day he's going to go and play volleyball in front of these doctors. And every single doctor and nurse, atheist and religious alike, turned up that day to watch him play volleyball in his volleyball match. And he's still got a part of his heart missing today. And the part of his heart that's missing, they say he should not be alive. They don't know how his blood pressure is maintained to this day. They don't know. And they don't know how he's alive with the part of, and his heart's working perfectly with this part of his heart completely missing.
But you don't expect me to believe any of this stuff because I haven't seen it?
No, I'll send it to you. I've sent it to you before.
Well,
you
said you wouldn't believe it either unless you see it,
well,
and you don't expect me to believe it either.
No, I don't believe it when it's a personal account. I believe it when there's many doctors involved, atheist and religious. Okay. I believe it and not one of them contradicts what he says. Not one. Now, not even the atheists, not even the nurses that were stealing his cassette tapes off him, so he couldn't listen to the gospel, so he couldn't listen to the Bible.
So I can't find
not
anything
one.
on him. So yeah, you should send that.
I've got it. I've got all the links. I've got everything that you need. As soon as I actually, I've got it in my notes. I don't need it to get back into my my docs. I don't need access to my account. So I can actually post. I can't post. Wait a minute. I can't put it into a doc. Damn it. What I can do is I can give it to you via email. I'll copy it right now.
Yep, that works.
And I just have to put in 5 hours. And there it is.
But again, it's hard for me to believe something when people are being healed like trivially like this, but then there's hundreds of millions who suffer the same thing and get nothing. Same thing or worse.
No, that's right. That's right. There's some people that do and some people that don't. I don't know why. Yeah. But all I know is this. If you're a believer, if you're not a believer, you're going to go straight to hell when you die. You're going to die horribly and go to hell. If you're a believer, you're still could die horribly, but you're going to go to heaven. And it says when you're in heaven, all your tears of pain will be washed away forever and ever and ever.
So to me,
So for eternity.
there's just
So
no
whatever you go,
explanation.
but wait a minute. If you're on this earth and you're going through, if you're on this earth and you say you live for 50 or 100 years, compared to eternity, eternity is more than 100 billion trillion years, right? So it's for never ending, for eternity. So you have to go through hell on this shithole of an earth. I hate this earth. I can't wait to be off it. Believe me, I can't. I hate this planet. I won't kill myself because I believe I'll go to hell if I do. Of course, Standing for Truth doesn't believe in any of that. I do. But, okay. So if you're on this earth, oh, what was I saying again? I got lost. I got sidetracked. I hate that. Sorry, Snake. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, so I was just saying.
My memory's terrible.
I don't.
It's failed me.
So it seems like there's just not an explanation, and I'm okay with saying there's no explanation.
That's right. If you spend such a short amount of time on this earth, which really compared to eternity is like a faster than a thousandth of a second, and you go through hell on this earth, and then you go to eternity where all your tears and pain will be washed away forever for eternity, then it's going to seem, once you're there in heaven, it's going to seem pretty insignificant what you went through on this earth, isn't it? But while you're going through it on this earth, going through the test basically on this earth, then you're, you think that it's so horrible and it's such a long time.
So you don't buy the argument that, like, look around, the earth is so beautiful and life is so beautiful that there must be a God.
No.
Okay.
No, the death is everywhere. The stench of death is everywhere. Death is everywhere. It's like we've got bacteria dying on us every split second. As you drive down the road, you see dead animals. Death it wasn't meant to be that way. If Adam and Eve never ate from that,
would you rather the bacteria just not die and you be coated in bacterial slime from head to toe completely?
No, of course. I know 40% of the bacteria in the oceans are killed by viruses every day. And if the viruses weren't there killing the bacteria in the ocean, 40% of the bacteria in the oceans every single day, we'd be overrun by bacteria. Obviously, before the fall, bacteria weren't as horrible as they are today, and viruses weren't as horrible as they are today. We know that we can use viruses. Viruses can go into our genome and carry bits of information into our genome. We can take some genetic information from somewhere. We can put it into a virus, and we can deliver it into ourselves to fix ourselves, right? Because we're breaking down. So don't you think that viruses may have had in the beginning may have had a good role to play instead of a bad role, and after the fall they became corrupted? The whole world became corrupted.
No, because there wasn't death in the world.
Yes, that's right. There was that's right. The viruses and they were obviously,
so they couldn't kill anything because there was no death.
That's right, but they were almost certainly guaranteed to be beneficial back then. Now they've turned nasty since the fall. As God said, I'll bring forth thorns and thistles, and Esau cursed the ground, the cursed man and the ground that he walks on, and it's cursed until the end of days because man ate from that tree. And if he never ate from that tree, we'd still have billions of people on earth, but they'd all be walking in harmony with God.
So it would have been a good thing for humans to stay ignorant of what good and evil was?
Yes.
Though,
because we never would have got to where we are now. We would be living on a perfect earth with no death at all. No, just perfection. And we actually get to see God in person. Adam got to see God in person, got to walk with him.
But we wouldn't know if that was good or not.
Yeah, but we didn't need to know, because God said ignorance is bliss. God said, how do they know that they're naked? And when God asks a question, by the way, he doesn't ask a question seeking knowledge. He asks a question to see if you're a lying sack of garbage and you're going to tell him the truth or not. So when you see God asking a question in the Bible, he's not asking the question of Satan, who are you and where you're from, to seek knowledge. He's asking him the question to see what a lying sack of garbage, to give him the chance to tell the truth.
So you think it would be better if we were just living in ignorance?
Yes. Well, wouldn't it be better if you were living on a perfect earth with no death, no sickness, no hunger? This is the thing that you say that we should be like today, right? This is exactly what you say the earth should be like today. You say, well, why doesn't God make it perfect? And he did make it perfect. It was perfect, exactly the way you wanted it to be. But man was a dumbass, and man went and ate from the tree. Doesn't matter if the woman deceived him or not. It's his fault. He should have been a man and stood up and said, "No, I'm not eating from it," and that was the end of it.
Well,
That was it. That
I
was
I don't think that's worth the price of ignorance. That's why I say knowledge
so. You
is
say
worth
that we should go through
knowledge
all this
is
hell?
knowledge is worth the struggle and the suffering that we go through to get the knowledge.
Well, there you go. So you can't complain ever about the
But
earth being,
but a God
so horrible.
but a God, an all-powerful
If it,
God, could give us both knowledge and paradise.
no, not if he gives us free will, because Adam obviously had free will. And
Well,
if
he
he
could.
gave
You
him
can
knowledge along with free will, the only way he could do that is if he made you into a robot that was programmed to say, "I love you,
no
God, you're
knowledge.
unreal."
Knowledge doesn't make you a robot. It just makes you understand.
No, the only way he could have, no, whatever the rules are, whether you agree with them or not, that's the rules. At the beginning of the creation, they worked out their roles. The members of the Trinity, they worked out their roles. They set out the rules and they follow the rules. Whatever their rules are, we don't know all of God's rules that he set out for himself. We don't know.
But
So
you
we
could.
can't say God's breaking his rules or isn't breaking his rules because we don't know his rules. Only he knows his rules for himself and his thing. So he set out all these rules that he's got to follow, and God's honest and he's just and he can't lie. So he's going to follow faithfully what he set out for himself till the end of days.
Yeah. So you're. I mean, you're saying that the rules are good, but you don't know what the rules are. So I don't know how you
No,
could.
God, no,
I don't
we
know how
know
you
what the
could know
rules
that.
no, we do know what the rules are for us. For us, I believe at the beginning of creation,
Well, God's
the three
rules for
members of
His
the
behavior.
Trinity, the three members of the Trinity, I believe that they worked out their roles at the beginning of the creation, and they set out rules for themselves to follow in that, but rules that we don't get to see. But He also gave us 615 rules in the Bible, 615 laws that we had to follow. And the reason why he gave us those laws, he didn't give us those laws thinking that any man would ever be able to follow them, because no man could ever follow them. It's impossible. He gave us those rules to show us how inadequate we are. To be like God, we'd have to follow every single one of those 615 rules perfectly. And it's impossible. So those rules were given to us to open our eyes, to show us that we are completely and utterly inadequate. And that is the whole point of everything. God knew at the beginning of the creation that Adam would eat from the tree. God knew, he saw all things at the beginning of the creation. He knew it would all happen. Till the end of days, he saw every word you'd speak, every word I'd speak, everything. Now, I know you're going to say that negates free will, but it doesn't, okay? We still can make our own destiny. We can still make our own choices.
So you can. So I think you can still have suffering and struggle, but without having cancer and death and murder and rape. You can still have heartache and struggle to understand the universe and to navigate relationships and to create businesses and works of art. You would still have to overcome the barriers for that, but there is a conceivable world, where you could have all that, a paradise, but you could still have the struggle necessary to overcome ignorance and gain knowledge, which is overcoming things that are in your way and understanding how things work. So I don't see why a God couldn't figure out how to do both of those things, and why he would need to make that the price of knowledge.
Well, okay. You've got murder and rape in the world. Okay, look, if God was to come in and interfere with every single evil action that man committed, right? Now you got to get, it all gets back to this one point where
It's not every
if
action,
you
it's just the worst ones. The ones
okay,
that result
well,
in slavery or death, which means that we can't continue to learn.
but what did Jesus Christ go through before he died? He went through hell. No man can ever turn around to God himself. God himself can never say to him, you don't understand hunger. You don't understand pain or fear. You don't understand any of this. So how can you tell us what to do? And he does. He understands it fully, because he went through, it's just as bad as any person that's ever been tortured and died on this earth, right? And he was tortured and murdered, brutally
Well,
murdered and mocked and everything. So no one can ever say to him that he doesn't understand. Now, he also said that when you get to heaven, all your tears and pain will be washed away forever and ever. So if your daughter's raped and murdered, if you're raped and murdered, if all sorts of things, if all these evil things happen to you, if you have faith, you'll go to heaven, and none of that will mean anything to you by the time you get there. Forever,
So why
you'll be washed
bother
away.
with
But if you
this?
don't have,
Why
hmm,
bother with this extra step? Why don't we just go straight to heaven, where He apparently just forgives us for our iniquities?
because it's that's got to do with free will.
So
If you
there's
did
no
it the
free
way
will
that
in heaven,
but
or
if no, but if you did it, wait, if he did it the way that you're saying, it would take free will away, right? It would negate free will. And if you had people that didn't have free will that say God could, he could come down right now and fix you and make you perfect and make me perfect and make it so we just worship him and nothing else, but we'd be like robots then. It's like if you had
no? I
just say you
mean,
had an android, if you just quickly, if you had an android robot and that robot told you sweet nothings and lovely things all the time, it was the most beautiful looking woman on earth, this robot, and it just constantly told you nice things, it wouldn't be fulfilling, would it? It wouldn't be fulfilling unless the robot had free will to walk away and go out and come back to you. That's really fulfilling love, isn't it? When someone loves you and wants to be with you because they want to be with you, not because they're programmed to be with you.
so it doesn't
That's
count
why
if
the
you're
same with
just.
God.
It doesn't count if you're just afraid of hell.
Sorry? I
It's
don't get
so
that.
so faith in God, wanting to go to heaven. You don't get to go to heaven just because you're afraid of hell. Because that's the
No.
Pascal. That's Pascal's wager, is saying believe in God so that you'll be saved, so that you, just in case you go to hell, and that's a fear based reasoning.
Yeah,
So
I
that wouldn't
think it's
count.
more um no, I would say that it's as simple as this. It's just simple. We were created. It's not complicated. They get too complicated on these things. We were created to have a relationship with God. And it's the only fulfilling relationship and true love is when someone wants to be with you.
Well, I'm s-
And and
I'm
and,
waiting
and
for his call, so
well, he's
I'm
he's
waiting.
he's he's calling you right now. It's like
I've
this
got a
guy. There's a
phone.
joke. There's a joke, and it's a good joke, and it'll make you understand. This guy, he was drowning, and a boat came up to him, and the boat said, the guy said, no, they said, the boat guy in the boat said, "Oh, we'll save you. You're drowning." He said, "No, no, no. God will save me. Go away. No, no." So they went away. Second boat came up. Third boat came up. Same thing. He kept sending them away. Then he drowned and died. When he got to heaven, he said, "God, why didn't you save me?" He said, "I sent you 3 boats."
Yeah, but the reason that joke doesn't, well, I mean, I get the humor behind it, but it doesn't make sense in a realistic sense, is because God could just lift him out. He wouldn't have to act through people. In fact, if he's sending boats, he's temporarily taking over the free will of those people.
Well, yeah, but it's that's not the point. The point is that okay, so you want to take away free will. That by doing what you're saying, you're just ripping away free will out of people. You're taking it away.
No,
And
I'm
then
saying
now
if
he now
God
he's
is
allowed he's
God,
allowed to in, he's allowed to interfere. Obviously, God's allowed to interfere. It's his creation. He's allowed to interfere. He's allowed to influence somebody's heart. He's allowed to put it in somebody's heart. There's a man drowning over there. Put it into their heart that to drive over there. Right? He's not taking control of them and possessing them like a demon and making them drive towards this guy like some mindless android robot. No, he's putting it in their heart to go to them. You know, so and you'd already have to have some sort of goodness in your heart, like to be able to have God place that in your heart and send you over to those people. So he sent 3 boats to them. The whole point is, I'm that boat. Everybody standing for truth is that boat. Redefined living is that boat that you keep rejecting, and the boat keeps coming to save you, and you just keep saying, "Oh, no, 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 I need total evidence and proof." Well, you know what? Satan is going to make sure that you don't see any evidence or proof
well, it's
for the
more
rest of
like
your life till you die. He's
it's
going to
more
try to.
like it's more like there's me and you are just both drowning in the ocean, and you keep saying there's a boat over there, and I say I don't see any boat. That's if you actually were showing me salvation, not just telling me that there is, then that would be a different thing. But I
Yeah, you
was
have a free will.
But my
You
point
have
is
free will
that
to.
if God is wants to preserve total free will, he could just lift me out of the ocean himself. He could just poof me right back onto dry land. That would convince me.
He could, but but he often doesn't. I mean, I don't know why exactly. I mean, look, let's put it this way: if he started doing stuff like that everywhere, all over the world, and saving people, then that would just convince everybody that God exists. Even people who had evil in their heart would
What's
get
wrong with
down on
that?
their knee. But they get down on their knee and they worship God. Well, they'd go to heaven and they'd make heaven like it is today. People need to be true believers. They need to be covered in the blood of Jesus Christ.
Well,
They need to be washed clean.
why couldn't the entrance fee to heaven just be whether you had good in your heart or
Entrance,
not?
the entrance. There is no entrance fee to heaven. It's a free gift.
Well, you
You
have to
just have to
believe in
believe.
God. Yeah. So
Hmm.
instead of everyone needing to believe, you could just give everyone proof, and then you're saying, well, the problem would be then people with evil in their heart would get in. Well, God would know who had evil in their heart, so He could just kick them out on that basis.
Yeah, he could, and he could do a lot of things, and he could change things, but he set out these rules for himself at the beginning of creation. This is what I believe. He set it out that he's got to follow a certain thing, and he sticks to that faithfully from beginning to end. So, and sometimes he comes in for whatever reason, and he saves Doug. And I know why he saved Doug. Doug, you know how many lives Doug saved since God brought him back? He has saved so many people that are still alive today. A lot of them died, after he saved them, they died anyway. Later on, they OD'd. He saved so many people's lives that are still alive today. He was there for his old man. If he wasn't there for his old man would have been stuffed in a nursing home and treated like garbage. That even the doctors said he deserves a medal for the way he looked after his old man. He's done so much good. He saved his mother's life 3 times, and then the bitch turned on him and screwed him over. He was doing 180 kilometers an hour, which is 120 miles an hour, something like 110, 120 miles an hour down the highway. And with his mum, she was dying. She had multiple valves in her heart. Um, like she had open heart surgery multiple times. I mean, she had valves in her heart and all sorts of things. And she was old, and the cops pulled him over. And when they found out he was trying to rush his mum to hospital, they gave him an escort to hospital. I
But
mean,
that
he's
so but
done so much.
that would
Mm.
imply that the people God let die wouldn't have done any good in their lives. So, and
Well,
I don't know how
but
you know
at
that.
least
Like,
they got the chance.
why didn't God send police officers to be in the place where Ted Bundy raped and killed a 12-year-old girl? Why didn't He send a boat
Well,
for her? Are we to
why
assume that
didn't why didn't
she
why
wouldn't have improved anyone's lives if she grew up and had the chance?
why did God not send legions of angels to save his own son from being brutally murdered and tortured and mocked? Why didn't he
Well,
do that?
apparently he consented to doing that so he could understand suffering, which he should already know if he's omniscient. But
Yes, but we live in a world that's fallen and broken. And if you have faith, no matter what you go for, I just said it to you. If you're raped and brutally murdered or whatever, if you have faith, you will go to heaven, and it will all mean nothing at that stage. It will,
so,
you won't have.
but the problem is then people with good in their heart who just happen to not understand your Bible and your religion will end up going to hell, even though they have good in their heart.
Yes, yes, that's right. It's actually yes. Well, yes. You could be a Buddhist, say a Buddhist, and you could never step on an ant. You could never kill an ant. You could do good for people and help the sick and the hungry, and do try to do as good works all your life, and you're still going to go to hell because you didn't believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and the gospel.
Yeah, what's the
Okay,
importance of that versus why is that more important than being and striving to be a good person for the most part?
and why is why is that more important? What do you mean?
Why is
I
believing in
think
the
it,
correct God more important than being good to your fellow mankind?
well, I mean, like I said, these are the rules that were set out at the beginning. These are rules, and he follows these rules faithfully. He is he,
But
God can't break it. God can break his own rules. I'm sure he could if he wanted to. But
but
whatever rules he set out,
these are the same rules that the Muslims tell me about their God.
no, it's not.
It
The,
is.
the Muslim God is look. There's about 3,000 religions. Let's say there's 3,000 different religions on Earth. 2,999 of them are fake, are Satan's counterfeit religion. Satan is a great counterfeiter. Okay, he wants to lead you astray any way he can. He'll give you like Star Wars toys. He'll give you computer games. The devil will give you computer games, Star Wars toy, anything he can do to distract you from focusing on God and focusing on his word. So if you devil doesn't care if you believe in Hinduism, he doesn't care if you believe in any one of the thousands of religions he's created. He couldn't care less, as long as he gets you away from the one true God. As soon as he's got you away, you're gone. You know what I mean? And if you die, you're gone. And that's his ultimate goal. And the reason why the devil can, and I believe this to be true, the reason why the devil can never receive atonement is because he doesn't have blood. Blood was given to us for atonement. So basically, while you have blood in your veins, you need to make atonement. If you die in your spirit form, you don't have the blood, right?
So,
blood is in the Bible from beginning to end. Whatever reason, I don't know why he decided that blood was the thing. I don't know. You'd have to ask him that, okay? But he decided that was the rule. That's it. Blood. That's the rule. You have blood in your veins. You either accept him before you die, because once you die, you don't have that blood. You can't receive atonement anymore.
so that's a bit odd, but I think that's a good point that you make about the devil using other religions and using false religions and communicating through false religions. So that's the reason I don't believe your religion too, is because I think I could be being deceived. So if there are deceivers, either devil, supernatural, or
because every other religion asks you to,
or just human deceivers, how are we supposed to tell the difference between these claims? Like, well, those are just the rules. Follow them, or you're going to hell. How am I supposed to tell your rules make more sense than these other rules if all of them appear just arbitrary?
Okay. Okay, let me get my thoughts straight here. I'm sorry, I've got a terrible memory, and this is why I don't go to live and I don't do debates. I mean, discussion's about the only thing I ever want to do. Okay, what were you saying again? I lost the track.
The problem is, because I assume that there are deceivers out there. You and I both agree that there are people who made up religions. Some of the time, obviously, they know they're making it up, and they're doing it for malicious reasons and control reasons. So we need to be able to have some way of differentiating between true religions and false religions, whether they're...
Oh, okay, I got it. So, stop now. So before I forget, sorry, I got your point. Okay. Every other religion, if you go and study, every other religion apart from Christianity asks you to do something to receive the atonement. Okay, whatever atonement they have in their religion, they always asking you to do something, like some sort of works to receive it. The Bible is the only one that offers it as a free gift. It's the only one. Okay.
But I have to believe in the right God to do it, which is the same.
Well, you know the right God. There's one that's offering you the free gift. The other ones that are telling you have to do all these works and help all these poor people and do all this stuff to get saved, that's wrong. That's why we say the Catholics are wrong. The Catholics have got it wrong, because they believe that works is the road to salvation, and works is not the road to salvation. Belief is the only way to salvation. It's a free gift, by the way.
I mean, that's not what my Catholic school taught, but...
Okay, oh, that's great. I'm glad they didn't teach that. That's fantastic. I'm really happy to hear that.
But it doesn't.
But
it doesn't seem.
Is belief is it's a free gift. It's free. That you go and study all the other 2,000 religions, and you will see every single one of them. It's not a free gift. You have to do some sort of works to be saved, to get that atonement, to be close to God, for God to accept you, and that is how you know it's corrupted. So the only religion on the planet is where it's a free gift is the one true God, the Hebrew God.
So, but I mean, in Islam, they weigh your sins and your against you, but
they weigh your bad deeds and your good deeds, and if your good deeds outweigh your bad deeds, then you go to heaven.
But you could just not sin enough and then get in just on your belief alone. But how do you know? But how do you know works?
Looking at a woman. But wait, just looking at a woman and imagining having sex with her, that's a bad deed. Straight away, you've committed a sin in your mind. You can't go, I'll
But
guarantee you can't go 1 minute without sinning in your mind.
but not believing is a sin in Christianity. So that's kind of against you. But how do you know works
No,
is like why are you saying works
not a
is this
sin.
distinguishing factor? Like why is that a bad reason for someone to get into heaven?
Um, well, I don't know. Like I said, God set out His rules, and we got to follow those rules. Whether we might have a better way. We might say to God, "Look, I've got a better way." Everybody's got their own idea on the way it should be. Well, that's the way God did it. Just get over it. I mean,
Well,
that's
yeah,
it.
that's what I was saying is you're just
That's the
saying that's just what he says. Get over it, just follow it. But that seems just as arbitrary to me as someone saying, "Well, this is what you have to do to get into heaven. This is just the way it is." Whether it's works or belief, it doesn't seem to matter which one it is. If it's just if I'm not getting a good reason for why that is the entrance fee to heaven, then it's all indistinguishable to me.
well, if you want to call it an entrance fee, mate, it's not a fee because it's free. You don't need money like in the Egyptian beliefs. You have to save up riches to buy your way into heaven. In the afterlife, you have to have your riches with you and give them to this little demonic spirit, and this little demon spirit will allow you to go into heaven. Into hell, probably more likely. But anyway, this is every other religion. You have to buy your way in. You have to work your way in. You don't need any money. You can be living out in the jungle with a little bit of cloth around you and eating berries off the trees and killing a few animals and eating them and have absolutely nothing, and just turn around and believe on Him and you're saved. There is
But
no. It's a free gift.
how do you know that that's wrong?
It says in the Bible that the end of days won't happen until the gospel has been preached to all men on earth, until all men. So there might be some tribes somewhere deep in the Amazon that haven't heard the word of God. Other people say that when an Indian said, cried out for help to the Great Spirit, that because God knew that he didn't understand the Bible, and he couldn't possibly understand the Bible because he doesn't have one, that he's crying out that God accepts his cry because he hasn't learnt yet, and he'll help him. So or he there's all different ideas on that, but the simple fact is it just comes down to belief, man.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is how do you know that belief is better? One, like why is doing works wrong? But how do you know whether either works or belief is good if you don't like how am I supposed to take your word for it that belief is what should get me into heaven
Belief
if there's no reason why that's a good reason? Is am I making
belief's
any
not
sense?
easy. Yes, belief's not easy, mate. Only God knows who truly believes in their heart and who is just faking it. Okay. Everybody says this is what annoys me about a lot of people. And I'm
So
not saying they say this man's a saved man. That man isn't. This man is, that man isn't. Okay. Look, only God truly knows who is truly saved and who isn't. Only he knows.
so
So
if I
if you
said to
don't
you that God will let you into heaven, that I have this religion where God will let you into heaven as long as you believe that there is a truth out there, that there is a objective truth. And as long as you believe that, you get into heaven. And my religion is superior to yours because it doesn't say works and it doesn't say an arbitrary belief in an arbitrary God. It just says there's a truth.
it's not superior. It is just well, it is superior. It's just the truth. It's the truth. If that's the you asked me, how do you tell the difference between Satan's religion and God's religion? Satan's religions are the ones that you have to work for to attain salvation or something to get you saved or in some way. God's religion is the one where you just have to believe on Him. Now you think
But
about this, mate.
that sounds
Did
satanic
you
to
ever
me.
no, did you ever have a time in your life? Did you ever have a time in your life when you really loved someone and looked up to them and you thought that they truly believed in you and then you found out that they didn't believe in you at all? Did that cut into your heart really deep? Yeah, I'll bet you it did. So how do you think God feels? God wants you to believe. If you don't
I
believe, then you're not truly with him. You're either with him or against him. And if you don't believe, you're
no,
against him.
no. I've been disappointed by people, but never once have I wanted them to burn in heaven or burn in hell and die.
Oh, you've never.
I would just continue to try and convince them of something, but I would never
What
want
if?
revenge on them.
Well, that's actually what you just said is a very Christian thing to say. That is said. It says in the Bible that is very Christian. That it says in the Bible that we're supposed to. You know how Sal acts towards atheists, how Erica loves him and all.
Mm.
He's actually more biblical than most of these other people, because he is. It says to love your enemy, to bless your enemy, to be there. You know what I mean? Like, okay, he could be a little bit more forceful. He could be a little bit more firm and still love them and bless them and
Yeah.
feed them and clothe them. It says
So
to love your enemy, bless your enemy, feed them and clothe them. And it says not to seek revenge. It says God is he the revenge be mine, saith the Lord. Okay, we're not supposed to
so
seek
that
revenge. Exactly what you just said
so
is
that
what the
sounds
way
a bit
we're supposed to act.
hypocritical. If we're being Christian, but by being nice and not seeking revenge, but we're worshiping a being who wants revenge, that seems hypocritical. But
Because when God takes revenge, it's just. When man takes revenge, he can make mistakes. How many people have been as a fallible man thought, oh, this guy did this to me, and they've gone out and done something to that person, and or killed them or hurt them, and then later on, years down the track, and found out, oh, hang on a second, that guy didn't do that. And this is, even if you know for certain that the person did it, it doesn't matter. It's not up to you to take revenge. Now, that doesn't mean a court. Now, the state, an individual can't take revenge, but the state can execute. The state can put somebody in prison. They can judge them and put them in prison. They can sentence them to death. That's fine, but the individual is not allowed. It says in the Bible that the governments were appointed by God, and any government is better than no government at all, and it is. If you go and live in a place where there's no, go to Somalia, go over to those areas where there's no government and there's just warlords and massive warlord gangs everywhere and stuff, and you go over there and see what it's like without any government at all in some areas. There's
well,
places in the world like that with no government at all, and you will be begging for the Chinese Communist Party, mate,
so
over that.
Somalia
But no
was
matter how bad they
Somalia
are.
was communist for a while, and they had really low standards of living. Then the government collapsed, and they
I'm not
started.
saying Somalia. Yeah, go
Well,
on.
I'm
Sorry.
just it's a bit of a
Okay.
tangent, but then
Oh,
Somalia uh, was without a government, and their GDP started
mm,
going up and up and up and up, and their quality of life was going up and up and up and up until our government, the U.S. government, sided with uh, invaders of their country, and we started funding gangs and thugs and warlords to go into their country and start instituting more government. So they were the best Somalia has ever done is without a government. Just a bit of a tangent, but
yeah, no. I, that's what you read. Unless you go and live it, then you're not going to know if that's true or not. It comes back to that you don't believe it unless you see it. Now
it's
that's
just
actually true.
it's just the
If
metrics.
no, if you go and live it, go into an area, go find a place in this world where there's no government at all, there's no king or hierarchy structure or anything like that, control like ruling over the people. You go to a place in this world where it's like that, you would be better off living under ISIS. I'm telling you, as evil as they are, you'd be better off living under an ISIS-run government than you would be living in a place where man just allows his anarchy to run wild. Look, if you took away the police today from America, you got rid of all the police and all the government. Snap my fingers, they all just disappeared. Now the gutters would be running red with blood within hours.
So you think the only reason I don't kill my neighbor is just because the police are
I'm
gonna
not
get me?
saying you, mate. I'm not saying you or your neighbor.
Me
You
as a
and all your
stand-in,
neighbors.
me as a stand-in for the average person.
I'm just
Do you
saying
think most
I'm
people
just saying
are?
you don't know what's in your neighbor's heart. You don't know what's in your neighbor's heart. If all the police, you don't know what's in. You've got lots of neighbors around you, lots of people. I'm sure you have. Okay, now you don't know what's in each single one of those people's hearts. If all the police and government were taken away, you don't know. One of those people might come up and kill you. You might be a nice person. Everyone in your building, if you say you live in a building and everyone in your building, a massive building, and you've got hundreds of people in the building. Everyone in your building might be a nice person, but the building over, there might be a few bad seeds over there. And it only takes a few bad seeds to start. They come over, they start this, and then you start fighting back, and you kill them, and then there's revenge, and it all turns into a shit fight. Without the government, it would turn the street. I would even, if I had to make a choice between an evil cockroach like Biden, a vile evil cockroach like him, or no government at all, I'd take Biden.
Yeah, so I think most people act the way that they would act without oversight. They don't want to kill you because they just don't want to kill you. But we can table that discussion for another time if we want to get back to theology.
Okay, I don't
so
mind, man. Like it.
So
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
to get back a little bit, like how do you know whether to believe someone saying this is how you get into heaven? The reason what you're saying sounds satanic to me is like if Satan or just some person wanted to deceive me or deceive anyone, it seems to me they would just say, just believe in my religion and you'll get in. That's it. You don't have to do anything. Whereas something that would make sense is say, just believe in goodness. Believe that there's truth. Have good in your heart. Have goodwill in your heart, and then you'll get in. But if you're trying to deceive someone, you'll just skip over that and say, no, it doesn't matter what your attitude is. It doesn't matter really what your philosophy is. As long as you just believe my God, then you get in. That seems deceptive and satanic to me.
No, that's not.
So
I never said
how
that.
would you know if Satan was saying that through the Christian church and corrupting the Christian word? Because if I was Satan, I would use the Bible and say, just believe and you'll get in, and I would cover up good intentions and say none of that matters, just as long as you believe this particular God, because then I could manipulate them through the word of that God.
I never said that. I never said that no matter the way you're acting, if you believe that you're going to go to heaven. I don't believe that. And even the Baptists that believe in once saved, always saved, they say, right, that okay, a person's saved until, and if he goes out and commits 10 murders in one night, mass murders 10 people in one night, oh, he mustn't have been saved, the Baptists will say. Well, that comes down to the fact that nobody truly knows who's saved and who is. No man knows, only God knows. Only God knows what's in a man's heart and who, if he believes truly or not, or if he has good intentions or bad intentions. Only God knows that.
Yeah. So how are we supposed to know then what the criteria for salvation are?
The criteria
if it's something
for salvation,
if it's something only God knows.
No, he only knows who truly believes. The criteria for salvation is belief, but he's the only one that knows. Like, people walk around all the time. There's a lot of fake Christians out there. They walk around saying, "Oh, I'm a Christian. I'm doing this. I believe in this," and they go and steal inheritances. And like let's put it this way: my cousin's church, right? I'm not going to start running down certain denominations. I'm not going to say what denomination her church is, and I'm not. All I'm going to say is this. Her church started out by borrowing $30,000 off my uncle, her father, and to get started. About 5 years later, they bought $11 million worth of land at Menai. Now, I know for a fact they got that land by stealing inheritances and ruining people's lives.
But okay? you could still believe.
I don't believe she's saved. I don't believe she's saved in the slightest. I don't believe that rotten pastor that's the head of that church is saved at all.
But you said
if anybody gave,
you said you didn't know though, so can't
I
you still believe?
I said I didn't say they're definitely not saved. I said I don't believe they are. They might be. I said I don't believe. I didn't say that they're definitely not saved.
So
I don't believe they're saved.
So isn't it possible that you can truly believe, and still have moral failings, like extreme moral failings?
Yes, because if like Standing for Truth said, if you had to be perfect like God to get into heaven, if you had to follow those 615 laws, impossible.
And are
You'll never get
you
into heaven. Everybody's going to hell. Standing for Truth's right when he says that. Everybody's going to hell. If you have to believe, if you have to work to be perfect in those 615 laws to emulate God perfectly, then every single person on earth is going to hell. So, I mean, obviously there's levels. If you step on a bug, Ken Hovind said this once, and he's right. If you step on a bug, that's a type of sin because you killed something. Okay, but it's a very minor sin. But if you go and step on a baby and kill it, well, that's a much bigger sin. You know what I mean?
but not if God drowns them all. That's not a sin.
Well, okay, it comes back to this. During the flood, the children were innocent. Okay, all the children that didn't understand that they were a hellbound sinner that needs a savior, when they died, they would have gone to heaven. Now it said
Well,
no, wait a minute. Now this is important. It said every single man on earth, his heart was corrupted. Every single man. So there was no hope of anybody ever receiving the truth of God at that point. Okay, and every child on that earth at that time would have grown up to be just like their parents, and they would have all gone to hell over and over and over in perpetuity till the end of days. There would be no one that would ever receive salvation because they'd never hear about God. So what God did is he wiped them and he started again. Okay, now the world is a lot better than it was way back then. Okay, but it's still not perfect because it's a fallen, broken world. But at least today, in even all this evil we have to put up with, we still got the chance of hearing the gospel and hearing the word of God. Whereas back in those days, no one had any chance of ever hearing the gospel, ever hearing the word of God. So
sure he
every single
could.
person that
He could have
no,
just
you
he could have
couldn't.
done it himself. He could have come down and told him the gospel.
No, but that comes back to free will, and we don't know why he made
So do
certain
I
laws
have
for himself
free?
and why he follows.
So if
We
someone
don't know for
teaches
sure.
if someone teaches me a truth, I no longer have free
We,
will because I know that truth.
no, I didn't say that.
So why
You've
couldn't
still got
God teach them the truth and them still have free will?
well, this is the thing. They obviously had the truth of God there at some point, and they all rejected it. And every man's heart became evil continually after that point. It was at a point. I don't know why, mate. All these little nuances, all these little details, you're never going to have that fully explained to you. Why? Because you'd have to be sitting there having a conversation with God Himself to explain all of these little tiny little nuances. The whole point is that no one on that earth at that time was better to wipe the slate clean, and all of those children went to heaven by default in my books. That's what I believe. Every single one of those children went to heaven by default that was wiped out in that flood. Young children, all of the parents went to hell, all of them.
So you
And
said,
and and, and now, but today we've got gospel preachers. We've got people go around preaching the gospel. Back then, there was none of that. There was none of that on earth. There was no people going around preaching the gospel. It's up to men to do that. Why didn't God just wipe out all of the enemies of Israel himself and just let them walk in there without having to fight or struggle at all? I mean, why a lot of things? There's lots of different ideas on that, but the fact is that you don't need to understand every single little microscopic nuance to believe on God. You
well,
just have to believe on Him and believe on the gospel and truly believe, which is hard for you, I understand, right? And you will be
yeah.
saved.
So I don't
So that's why
understand.
don't leave it till the last minute, to the last week or 2 weeks while you're dying to try and think, oh, I'll just leave it till I'm dying and then I'll believe. Well,
Well,
you
you
know,
said
it's
you said those children were saved because they don't understand that they're hellbound sinners. Well, I don't understand that either. I understand that that's what you
no,
believe, but I don't understand that. That's why I'm bringing up all these things. Is they're not minor
you
little
do
details.
understand it.
I don't because
No,
these
you do
seem
remember
like
what it's like to be a child, and you do remember what it's like to be an adult, and there's a difference. There's an innocence
no.
in a child.
There's
Once that innocence is gone, you know, whether you say it or not, you know in your heart that you're a sinner,
I don't.
that you're a hell-bound sinner. Yes, you do.
I don't. And you
Yes,
telling
you
me
do.
that what I believe is just convinces me more that you're
Yeah.
wrong. Because if your philosophy is telling you that you know something that I know I don't know, then that means that I know that your philosophy is wrong.
Okay, so if you go out and if you've never heard of the Bible and you'd been raised like an animal, say, and you went out and you had like your mother and father and say your whole family were raised like animals and you went and murdered your mum and your dad and your brothers and sisters, And I mean, I know there'd be some people, 1 in 1 million, that wouldn't care. I'm talking about you, okay? And say you didn't know. You know in your heart, if you did that, you'd be sad, and you'd know it deep down inside it was wrong, right?
If
If you got angry and
someone,
drunk one night, if you got angry and drunk one night, and you're the only family on earth, and 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 none, you never heard about God or anything, and never heard about the gospel. There's no one there to tell you, and you just went psycho one night, got blind drunk, say. And I don't get violent when I'm drunk, thank God. I mean, unless I'm attacked or treated like shit. But if people just treat me normally when I'm blind drunk, I never get into a fight. I'm a very gentle person. But if you went off your head, say, and attacked someone that hadn't done anything to you, just because, say, you imagined they did something and you'd killed your whole family, and you woke up the next day and realized what you'd done, you telling me that because you'd never heard about God or morals from the Bible, that you wouldn't know what you did was wrong, and you wouldn't feel bad about it and go, oh, what have I done?
I would know
And
that
feel
as a
sad and lonely.
I would know that as a child too, but the reason I would know that that was bad is because of reason,
You're not likely
not
to do
because
that
of
as a
God.
child.
That has nothing to do with me knowing that I'm a sinner.
A young child is not going to be able to take on an entire family and kill them all. I mean, okay, unless they've
Well,
got a
if
50
they,
cal
yeah,
minigun.
if they took the spear and stabbed their family while they were dead, I don't know. That
Well, they were sleeping, man.
you would still know that that's bad. You could still know that under the same
Yeah, you
circumstances.
know, but you know, when you're a child, you don't think about, this is why we don't put kids in prison like we never used to put kids in prison for doing, heinous acts, is because they kids don't your conscience and certain parts, you don't fully develop until you're 20. Did you know in the Bible, like I had a friend once, let me give you an example. I know I'm getting a bit off, but just let me get there. I had a friend once that said to me that there's no set age to be married in the Bible, and there isn't, right? There's no set age. And I said to him, okay, so there's no set age in the Bible. That's right. So you're saying to me, when my sister was 9 years old and she was infatuated with this 47-year-old man or 42-year-old man, and she wanted to marry him, that if I stop her from marrying him, then I'm of Satan, right? He said, yes, because it says if you stop her from marrying, you're of Satan. I said, okay. I said, so you believe that if a 9-year-old wants to get married, that if you stop her, that you should allow her to get married? And I said, no, God does not want that. And he's calling me Satan boy, and yelling at me and that. And I said, okay, we'll go back to the Old Testament. There was a time in the Old Testament. There's times in the Old Testament when God wouldn't hold children accountable until they were 20 years or older. He wouldn't send them to war until they were 20 years or older. If their parents were committing sins, right? This is an example. If their parents were committing sins, God would kill them, even though the child was fully involved with them. Say at 19, he was fully involved with them committing the sin. God would kill the parents and not the child. And the child would get an example and go, okay, your parents have just been killed. You've been spared. You know what's going to happen now. Now, when you turn 20, if you continue to do this, you'll be getting killed yourself.
So
So,
this is one
so
reason.
this gives you an idea. This gives you an idea. There is an age that God, there is an age where of maturity where God holds you accountable, and it's clear in the Bible. And there is an age where it isn't held accountable, where you aren't held accountable.
But God's not doing that today. So this is another big hole of why I don't believe in hell. And if I don't believe in hell, there's no way for me to understand that I'm bound for hell.
Well,
I can
you can
There's
say
a
all this.
difference between understanding that you're bound for hell and understanding that the difference between right and wrong and understanding that you've done wrong. You can understand that you're making you're contradicting yourself or you're doing something evil, which is essentially the same thing, without having to know anything about hell, without having to know anything about the Bible. And that's kind of the foundation of my moral theory is there are reasons why God believes certain things are wrong, and those same reasons are accessible to us just as rational beings at all.
I don't know why God does certain things. I don't know why he makes certain rules. I'd have to ask him. I'd have to ask him to get the real explanation, the
But
proper explanation. All I know is
if we don't know,
there's an
how can we
example
know
in the
that it's
Bible
good?
that he But there's an example right there that I gave you that he doesn't hold people accountable until a certain age. Now, we also know, I've got a video on this, that people mature much faster now than they did in the past. People were living longer, they matured slower. There's actually evidence for this. There's actual evidence for this. I've got a video on it with a dentist that talks about, anyway, it's a long story. I'm not getting into it. It's too complicated and it'll take too long. I can give you the reference later. So, but people are maturing faster today than they were back then. So maybe a 19-year-old back then might have been equivalent to a much younger child. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I don't know. But all I know is that God placed an age limit. And even though those children were taking part in doing evil with their parents, God killed the parents and not them if they were under the age of 20, sort of thing. He wouldn't send them to war unless they'd reached the age of 20. So
unless they were the kids who lived before the flood.
Well, the kids that lived before the flood, because they're going to go to heaven by default, then they're going to go to heaven, even if they didn't go to heaven, right? Even if they didn't, it doesn't matter. The whole point of before the flood, men were wiped out. They were wiped from the face of the earth because there was no chance of any of them ever being saved. Any of them, for whatever reason that was, God didn't decide to. God made the rule that He's not going to come down. It was up to the man to carry on these traditions, to teach the children and bring them up and teach them about God and about these things. They'd forgotten about God. They'd let Him go. They were following their own lusts and the evil in their own hearts. Continually. They were evil people, every single one of them. So they were wiped from the face of the earth. He started again. Now, it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect because it's always still going to be a fallen, broken world. Also, by the way, I want to say to you, you might have a question. Do you ever think about how did the grass grow after the flood? If there's this great big flood, then how did the grass grow? I don't believe God did it supernaturally either. Do you ever think about that? How did if there's this flood?
Plants and trees, yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got tomatoes out in my garden, and I've got seeds. Like what I do is at the end of the year, I just let all my tomatoes rot and fall down into the ground, and you have to let your tomatoes go rotten before you collect the seeds out of the tomato. Anyway, it's a better way to do it. So you've got these seeds. I've got these seeds buried in my garden down deep. Now, my garden in winter here, the ground's wet constantly. So you've got 9 months where the ground is just constantly moist and wet, and yet these seeds don't germinate because they're not in the right conditions. But they stay in this soaking wet, constantly wet rain here like crazy during winter. So they're constantly soaking wet all winter, and then I go out and I turn the garden over and mix fertilizer in and put the beneficial bacteria and whatever, and then all of a sudden this seed that was buried down deep comes up to the top into the right conditions and it sprouts. So you can imagine how many seeds there would have been mixed in with that mud. There would have been, and they say, even evolutionists say, the earth today is a veritable desert, biological desert, compared to what the earth was back then. Okay, so there would have been so many hundreds of billions of trillions of seeds just everywhere, and during the flood most of them would have got destroyed. I believe that there's something like 8,000 different fruits in the Amazon jungle, and I believe that the earth, different fruits and vegetables in the Amazon jungle, I believe that the earth had much of its biodiversity was wiped out at the flood. That the plants that we see today are just the seeds that survived. And as the moment that the conditions were right, they were already mixed into the mud, the ones that were at the correct depth. Now, they found 2,000-year-old date palm seeds, a date palm that had been extinct for 2,000 years in Israel. And these seeds were literally 2,000 years old. And out of 100 or 30 of them or whatever it was, 2 or 3 of them sprouted after 2,000 years. So, you think about this.
But
when the conditions...
There's a lot of seeds that can't survive those conditions, though.
That's right. And much of the biodiversity was wiped out, I believe. I believe that there was probably 100,000 different types of fruits and vegetables before the flood. Hundreds of thousands. And now we've got 8,000 or something left in the Amazon jungle.
So did God just think that those ones that got wiped out were just disposable?
They're not important. They're just plants. We live in a fallen, broken world, mate.
So he made them, but they're not important? They're God's
Yes,
creation, but not important.
they're not important to us being alive and being able to eat. We can still eat and stay alive, and we live in a fallen, broken world. We don't live in a perfect, Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden world where we never ate from the tree and everything's perfect and we never get sick and we never die. We never would have died. You know that? Every human being that was born in the Garden of Eden would have lived forever and walked in perfect harmony with the Lord. And it says in the end that the earth will be restored to that. That the earth that he's going to do away with this world. He's going to create a new heaven and a new earth, and we will be on that earth. All of the believers will be on that earth, and we'll be living in perfect bodies, in perfect harmony with God, walking with God, talking with God, living in just pure bliss without any sickness, any. You don't need to get up to go to work. You got your food all around you. You never get sick. You never get die. You just spend time with your loved ones and worship God. And it says God will be our light forever and ever. He's going to roll up the universe like a scroll and do away with it. And he'll be our light forever and ever and ever. And it says God is light. Or he
Mm-hmm.
emanates light.
So I had one question to go back a little bit. So did you say that there was or was not free will in heaven?
I don't believe there is free will in heaven. No. I believe that when you're in heaven, that if God says for you to do something, you do it, and I think it's more like not okay, I'll do it. It's more like you just want Him to tell you to do something. You want to do it, because I remember when I was younger, I used to love helping people. I used to love working, mate. I used to be able to run up 20-foot high, freaking almost vertical, bloody cliff faces, just run up and flat. And without even touching the side, mate, I was so fit. Like you can imagine living in a time. Could you imagine that just think of this. We live in a fallen, broken world. No matter what you think it should be like is not what God's ever going to think it should be like. He's always going to have a different idea to you. And everybody's got different ideas. So we've got these rules to follow. We just have to grin and bear it. We just have to follow these rules, and that's it. And at the end of days, the earth and like when we die, at the end of days, or if we die beforehand, we'll be there. And at the end of days, it'll all be done away with. All this corruption, the corrupt universe, the corrupted heavens, the corrupted earth will all be rolled up and done away with, and hell will be cast into the lake of fire, it says. And where's hell? In the center of earth. So that means this earth will be done away with, just like the Bible says, and it'll be cast, hell and Satan. Once Satan's in the lake of fire, he will have no power there. He'll be just in the same boat as you and everybody else, writhing in flame. Okay? The hell isn't all flames. Okay, but I mean, how in the lake, in the end of days, when he's there, he'll be writhing in flame. So the thing is, there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and can you imagine living in a place where there is no sickness, no death, not even a bacteria dying, nothing? That you eat a fruit, and the fruit is not alive. It's not breathing and thinking and thinking when, oh no, please don't eat me. It's not alive. So you're alive. You're a conscious being. It's not a conscious being. So that's what we're looking forward to. That's what we look forward to. The end of days, the peace and harmony and love. And the way I've treated you, Snake, in the past, and the way I've spoken to you, and the nasty things that I've said, I can tell you is not Christian at all. I mean, I could have said those things and acted in a way towards you that conveyed the message without being an evil little prick like I was at times.
Well,
And I
that's
want to apologize for that.
well, yeah. Thank you for that apology. And likewise, I'm sure I was heated right back to you.
No, not really. I mean, you were, but only because I was a prick in the first place.
All right. Well,
You're always polite to begin with, mate.
I got to get the
All
door
right.
real quick.
Okay.
Or
Look, I tell you what, could we do this another time? Because my dog's lying there. He's old and he's whinging at me to get out, and I'd have to go out for about 10 or 15 minutes. I
yeah,
really
man.
love to talk to you again. Is that all right if we talk again? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
it was
really
good.
like talking to you, man.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. I love you, brother.
Alrighty.
And you are my brother, whether you're a believer or not. You might have accepted Satan as your father. You might be your adopted father, Satan, but that doesn't mean just because my brother is adopted by another father, another man, as he adopts him as his son, and he gets another father, doesn't mean he's not my brother anymore, right?
All right.
Love you, brother.
All right.
God bless you.
Well, I'll talk to you later.
Talk to you later, brother. See you, mate. Bye.
Bye.